We all know The Boys is full of victims. You've got Huey, who's been through hell, Mother's Milk with all of his trauma, Kamiko trying to find herself after everything Vought did to her. But what if I told you the biggest victim isn't any of them? What if it's Soldier Boy? That's right, what if I told you that Soldier Boy, the soup from a different time, who many view as a villain, is actually the real victim in The Boys? In this video, we are going to talk about Soldier Boy's tragic past and how he was betrayed by not one team, but two. And we will also be talking about how he's not 100% evil and might even be better than some of the good guys in the show. First, let's start off with Soldier Boy's origin story. Soldier Boy, also known as Ben, was born into a very wealthy family on September 19th, 1919. We never learned much about Soldier Boy's mother, and it's very possible his mom was never in the picture or even died very early into Soldier Boy's life. But we know plenty about his father, and none of it's good. His dad neglected him his entire life, treating him like a disappointment, like he was a waste of space. I even have a theory that Soldier Boy's mom might have died during childbirth, explaining why his father neglects him so much. But no matter how hard Soldier Boy tried to earn his father's approval, it always blew up in his face. Even when Soldier Boy joined the army and became America's greatest superhero with the help of his dad's girlfriends, Soldier Boy's dad still called him a disappointment and said he wasn't a real man. Granted, he never did a whole bunch of fighting in the war. I'm pretty sure they just used him on tiny little battles where they already had the upper hand, because why would they want to risk him dying and then Vought loses their most valuable asset? But that's besides the point. Let's get back to his daddy issues. This is the exact reason why Soldier Boy is so dismissive towards almost everyone in the show. He became his worst nightmare, his father. Nothing shows this better than in the final confrontation scene between Homelander and Soldier Boy. When Homelander tries to make Soldier Boy proud of him, Soldier Boy said exactly what his father said to him.
You. I know. You're a fucking disappointment.
It's no coincidence the show had a scene where Soldier Boy tells Butcher that his dad did the exact same thing, almost right before this final confrontation. It's a chain. Soldier Boy's father called him a disappointment, Soldier Boy called Homelander a disappointment, and now there will probably be a scene where Homelander calls Ryan a disappointment. Now, I know me calling Soldier Boy the real victim will have a lot of people point to all the evil things he's done, especially in those flashback scenes, the ones where Soldier Boy is shown being brutally violent and cruel to the rest of Payback, but honestly, these scenes have always felt off to me. The way Soldier Boy acts in them feels completely different from how he behaves in the present timeline. Yeah, he's aggressive and definitely not the nicest guy, but he's not nearly as over-the-top cruel or unstable as we see in those flashbacks. This is what leads me to think Black Noir might not actually be remembering things correctly. Now, I'm not saying he made the whole thing up, but it's not exactly far-fetched considering he's literally missing a massive chunk of his brain. Soldier Boy probably did beat up Black Noir quite a bit and was probably very mean to him, but maybe not to the extent that he remembers it. Speaking of Payback, they betrayed Soldier Boy. Was he the nicest guy to them? Of course not. But despite all of his flaws, he genuinely loved Crimson Countess, and she still turned her back on him, handing him over to the Russians, condemning him to years of torture and isolation. All of it just so Vought could replace him with Homelander, which when you really think about it makes the whole thing even more tragic, because Soldier Boy literally said it himself. He would have gladly stepped aside to let his son take the spotlight. And just with those few scenes we see of what they did to Soldier Boy in the lab, it's not crazy to see why he's so angry at his team. If anything, I would expect him to be even more angry because of all the terrible things they did to him. And furthermore, years later when he finally breaks out and tracks down Crimson Countess, she practically spits in his face and tells him she never loved him, breaking his heart for a second time. And it wasn't just Payback that betrayed him, the boys did too. Soldier Boy made a deal with Butcher, help him take out everyone who sold him out, and in return, he'd help Butcher kill Homelander. And for the most part, he held up his end. He was ready to finish the job until Butcher switched up on him. I get it, Ryan was in danger, but the way Butcher handled it felt pure instinct, not reason. Soldier Boy had been surprisingly easy to work with to that point. If Butcher had taken a second to think, maybe he could have stopped him without turning it into a fight. Because in that moment, Soldier Boy was about to kill his own son, not out of hatred, but because of a deal, and because he saw that Homelander truly was unstable, dangerous, and everything he despised about himself. And let's be honest, after Butcher was done with the deal and Soulja Boy chose not to stay with him, Butcher probably would have found a way to kill or capture Soulja Boy, whereas Soulja Boy probably would have just left the boys and let them do their thing while he's off doing whatever he wants to do next. Now let's talk about something I mentioned earlier in the video. I don't think Soulja Boy is nearly as bad as people make him out to be. Don't get me wrong, he's done some terrible things, but when you compare his actions to the horrors other supes have committed, Soulja Boy actually stands out as one of the better ones. Like I said before, he's a man of his word. He's stuck with his deal with Butcher, even when it meant killing his own son. And beneath all of that arrogance and anger, there's still a bit of compassion left. You can see it when he accidentally kills all of those innocent civilians earlier in the season. He actually felt bad.
I didn't mean to hurt those people. I'm not a bad guy.
And let's not forget the scene where he agreed to helping the priest and nun with their broken down car. Now I know people are going to bring up Soulja Boy being racist, or the fact that he threw a car into Mother's Milk's house and killed almost everyone inside, but here's the thing, we never actually saw how it all played out. There is a chance Soulja Boy saw Mother's Milk and just threw the car at his house because of his race, but there's also a chance that he threw it because he was just being reckless and didn't even see Mother's Milk. We don't actually know for sure if race played a part. Of course, even if it didn't, it's still a terrible thing to do. But this is a case of nature versus nurture. Soulja Boy grew up around his dad and others from that era, so it's not surprising that some of their attitudes and prejudices rubbed off on him. I'm not trying to excuse or justify his racism, it's wrong, plain and simple, but for the sake of understanding him, it's worth exploring his point of view and how his environment shaped him. My point is, yes, Soulja Boy is deeply flawed, but in my opinion, he's still better than characters like Butcher, a man who only cares about himself and is blinded by his own rage and thirst for revenge. Why do people view Butcher as a victim and not Soulja Boy? But when you really think about it, Soulja Boy's life has been far worse than Butcher's. The key difference? Butcher is the main character. He gets chances to change and grow. Soulja Boy, on the other hand, starts to show some character development, and the moment he does, he's shoved back into isolation. And he's far better than Homelander or Stormfront. And he's arguably better than the Deep and A-Train. Now, I'll admit, in the new spin-off with him and Stormfront, we'll probably see a more aggressive and villainous version of Soulja Boy, which might make this argument harder to defend. But based on purely what we've seen in Season 3, I'd say he's a victim and not nearly as bad as people make him out to be. In summary, Soulja Boy was neglected by his father his entire life, betrayed by his team and the only person he ever loved, and sent to a lab where he was tortured and experimented on for years. He breaks out with the help of the boys, only to be betrayed again and thrown back into isolation. And yet, despite all this, he still has some redeeming qualities. They just get overshadowed by the mistakes he's made. And he is by far my favorite character in Season 3, and in my opinion, one of the most interesting characters in the show. And that is going to be the end of the video. If you've enjoyed it and made it this far, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel, and let me know what you think. Do you agree, disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. If you want to see more videos like this, then I have one on how Homelander is the real victim in The Boys, and a couple of conspiracy theory videos on Red Dead Redemption, Breaking Bad, and more. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.